Merry Christmas. Doesn't look a lot like Christmas outside yet, but it will, I'm sure. Hopefully not until I get my snowblower fixed. That's my goal. It can't snow until I get snowblower fixed, and it's snow enough where I need it. So, this morning we're taking a break, a little bit of a break from Isaiah. We'll finish up Isaiah next year. We're taking a little break this morning to start a Christmas series called Christmas Prophecy. We're going to look at the different prophecies in the Old Testament about the first coming, the first advent. And usually when we think of prophecy, obviously our mind usually goes to Revelation. And we'll spend a little bit of time in there, but we can't forget the amount of amazing prophecy about the first advent of Christ that is in the Old Testament. The prophets had foretold it. Now, understand, there's not just one place where it's at. It is spread throughout the Old Testament, because if it's all in one place, then as Paul said, those who are in power, the evil forces would have known what was going to happen, and they would have prevented they tried to prevent the birth, which we'll talk about, but they would have prevented the crucifixion of Christ. So the whole story of Christmas, the whole purpose of Christmas is in the Old Testament. It's just spread about. So we're going to look at some of those places. So centuries before the birth of Christ and before the prophecies were going to be fulfilled, the prophets had foretold what was going to happen. And this is probably what I would call one of the strongest validities for the truth of God's word, that the fact that this is God's holy word, this is what he wanted to be told to us. It's all in there. It shows us, because it's not just from one person, as far as one person who wrote it. God used all the different people to write it, but it all comes back to the same story and the same prophecy. Yahweh is the only one who knows what's going to happen. This morning we were sitting at the breakfast table, Abigail and I, and I'm big on different videos that I'm watching. I'm watching one by an organization called AOC, and they had just put out a video on the Antichrist. And so this is talking about the spirit of the Antichrist that is in the world. And she's asking some questions, and one of the things the person says, and I believe this is true, is that Hitler was an Antichrist. He was a form of Antichrist. She says, Abigail says, I don't understand that. Why? How do we know that? It's like, well, think about this. Satan doesn't know what's going to happen. He always has to have somebody ready. And he is always trying to push God in order to get him to start the process, because Satan is relishing those 3.5 years that he's going to reign and everybody's going to worship him. He doesn't know when it's going to happen. Only God knows what's going to happen in the future. And it is only he who has the power to work everything out for his will. No matter what, we have free will and we can do some things, but you must understand, even when we exercise our free will, we are actually working into the will of God. That is how amazing and powerful he is. Some people think there's a conflict there. There's no conflict. He doesn't force us to do anything, but it's just amazing how everything we do actually ends up working towards his will, one way or the other. Only God knows the beginning from the end.